So a sitemap is a traditional way to show basically a website and all of its different pages and how they relate to each other. All right, so this is a very simple sitemap here where we start with a home page, and then we've got a products, cart, account, and then other pages. And you can see that underneath products, you've got categories, and underneath categories, you've got collections. It's like an overview in a flowchart kind of way where we don't care about what these screens actually look like. This is really just to show what's the content, right? This is a content map. It's a map of all the different parts of your application. This particular one puts all the other pages just in this other pages link. So let's take look at a couple more of them. Here's a UX sitemap. Home page comes down to, shows these different page titles. You know, this page would have these other pages underneath it. Let's take a look at, there's a different technique. Instead of doing it from the top and bringing it down like a tree, this one's more center-based. We've got a home page for Google sitting here in the middle, and then out from it, let me see if I can zoom in on this one. There we go. This is showing all these different things you can get to from the Google Home, and you can get to your personalized home, Google Images, news, maps, books, all these different things. And then when this goes a little bit further, all right? So we can do the same thing with an app. It doesn't have to be web pages. This is traditionally, and the reason you do this, you know, I build a lot of things freelance, and someone comes to me with a website they want built or an app idea. And one of the first things I need to do is I need to figure out how much time and energy it would take to build and how much money I need to charge. And we need to agree on how big it is. Like if I build a client a website, we're going to sign a contract at the beginning that talks about how many pages are in this website. Because I'm not going to agree to get paid $1,000 to build a 5-page website, and then all of a sudden it turns into a 500-page website, and they're not expecting to pay me anymore. You know, like it's very important that we define what's called the scope of the project and exactly how much content is in it. When you talk about a website, it's typically you start with, you know, how many pages are there? And then what's the content on each page? So for this one, this is a gluten-free living sitemap, which I guess going to Pinterest besides Google Images is also really another good way for you just to search for sitemaps. Okay, that's not letting me make it any bigger, which is fine. But you can see here that, you know, under home, there's about us, and it's kind of color-coded that shows you that this one's actually a really great example because it's saying, okay, this green color represents the main pages, and then this gray color is page content. So under about us, it's got some content that says about the company, and then links that you're able to access. The rest of these are links. So this is all showing all of the content on this website and kind of how it relates to each other and what goes with what. All right, so you'll find a lot of really, really good examples out there if you search for the term sitemap. But then besides sitemap, we can also search for content map. Now, sitemap is a little bit of an outdated term because you can use this when you're building apps or anything really, but it really relates to the same thing. It's just whatever content and how that relates, how you can put it down. So here's a nice little infographic explaining to you about content mapping. That's great. Here's a map content to journey, and this one is more starting on the left, like kind of a choose your own adventure style, like you're going to be able to make these specific choices to do these specific things. You might start at the top and come down to branch everything off. You might start at the left, more of a linear story like, and branch out and kind of show all the different combinations and all the different things that you could do. You want to show in your content map all of the different kind of screens that you're going to have. So you're all probably going to start on like a home screen or a start screen or something like that. Now again, there's lots and lots of ways to do it. This is more of a kind of an engineering schematic type, top down. Again, kind of starting from the left and building out. I've seen some circular ones. Here's a real creative one. This is pretty interesting. This is actually an infographic about content mapping. It looks like You can read more about it. So it's definitely just a big part of our industry to be able to visualize content and understand in a visual way how much content's there and how it relates to each other. Let's see, here's a more simple version, but just kind of showing, you know, what's in these areas and as they move through, more of a flowchart mind map looking type thing. You just need to illustrate what content is in your project, what screens, what choices, what dialogue, you know, whatever it is, and figure out how to show how it flows and how the user, imagine a tiny user like standing in the middle, and the user should be able to walk to each part, at each step of your project, and it should be a nice representation of how much content's going to be there. So I should be able to look here and know and say, oh, this is either going to be a relatively simple project, or this is going to be something quite complicated if there's a lot more nodes that are all connected and things like this. So many different ways to do it. Let me show you a couple of different tools. Now, you could draw all of this in Animate. Like, you literally don't need anything but Animate if you don't want. You can literally use the drawing tools and just draw squares and boxes and whatever, and just save a screenshot or save an image out of it. You could do the same thing in Photoshop or Illustrator or Sketch if any of you use any other drawing programs. You can just draw and create this from scratch if you want. There are some other tools, however, that make drawing these types of things a little easier. One of them, app.diagrams.net, right here. This is basically a drawing program that I believe Google at least created, or maybe they are branding it as something else now. But you could actually save your diagram to Google Drive and authorize it, grab my account. Okay, draw.io. Let me see, that's what I was used to using. I'm going to allow all of this. Yes, do all of these things. Okay, so now I can create a new diagram, and from here, first of all, there's a bunch of kind of pre-made things to try out. So a class diagram, a flow chart, lots of different kind of templates to start with. And I mean lots of them, because you can go through business and chart and cloud and engineering and all these different types, maps, all these different kind of types of flow charts, or you just start from the beginning. Like if I start with a blank diagram, create it, sure, I'll use my root folder. It's actually saving a document inside of Google Drive, and then it gives me this drawing area where I can literally draw these boxes and things, and then I believe I can like touch the corners of them and connect them, or maybe I draw lines separately to connect them. But anyway, there's a lot in here to be able to draw these types of shapes and connectors, all kinds of little arrows and things, and this is a free program that you can go in and color code things, and you can just draw really nice content maps using this app.diagrams.net. That is one free tool to draw this types of things with. Another is called Glyphy.com. In fact, I'll show you an example of one that I did with Glyphy here in a moment. Glyphy does have a paid version, but you can use it for free in a limited way. And what it does is have, just like that one I just showed you, the draw.io, but it's a little bit more robust with like more options and more things you can draw, and it's a little bit easier and more templates and things like that. So this is a little more of a professional version, but there's lots of other things out there. Like you could easily search for sitemap builder or mind map or content map builder or something, and there's tons out there. As far as size or whatnot, it doesn't really matter. It's just this should be a document that is shareable and professional. Make sure and give your content map, like don't just have it be a blank document. Have your name and a way to contact you and a title as to what it actually is and what project it pertains to. So you should be able to print it out and have it kind of like stand on its own as a professional document. So don't just have like a blank flow chart with no title or heading or anything on it, right? So that's half is just to create a content map. The other half is to create wireframes. So I'm going to go back to trusty old Google Images, and I'm going to type in wireframe. Okay, so you can see even at the top, I can filter it by website, design, sketch, app, mobile app. Just take a look at website for a minute. And let me find a good example of one. Here's one. So a wireframe is basically, without using any colors or actual fonts or imagery or anything, to just quickly rough out where everything's going to be on the screen. All right, and what you're going to need to do is, and you can have your content map and your wireframes both in the same document if you want. You could make a PDF, or you could just make images and copy them into a Google Doc to have them in there, or you can have them separate. It doesn't matter, but either way, you're going to need one wireframe screen for each separate screen layout that you're going to have in your app. Depending on your app that you're making, you should all at least have like an intro screen or a start screen that will be different than like your main area screen. Each different layout you're going to need to show kind of in this subtle way of, a lot of people use these boxes with an X through it to denote where an image is going to go. But I want to start with just showing you as a website. A lot of times, instead of using like lines and stuff, we've got these. So this is like a more of an image placeholder look, that this is all grayscale, things that usually there's no color in a wireframe. And the reason we make wireframes is to just quickly and easily rough out ideas so that we can change things around easily without spending too much time on it. And it's just a way to kind of show, okay, here's the way the particular layout is going to be, and here's what's going to be where. So here shows us very much, okay, the website name is going to be here. This is going to be a big image. There'll be a call to action button. There's some customer quotes over here. There's a video here. Here is a nav at the bottom. It shows us what's going to be there. So without actually having to make the real design, you just want to very, very roughly just kind of block out where things are going to be and what's going to be there. So if I were to look at, let me go back to just wireframe, and maybe if I look at mobile app, so you can see here's a wireframe made on an actual mobile app screen. This one is basically kind of sketched out, which I typically ask you to stay away from sketching. This is actually done well. You want to use real typed out text, and you want to use reusable blocks as much as you can, because it just, when things get sketched out, they just look a little bit unprofessional. But here's an example of, there's all kinds of like wireframing kits out there that you could look for if you wanted, that gives you little grayscale versions of little elements and things that you can use. So again, this is just a wireframe is simply showing what each screen looks like without actually putting in the final graphics, just kind of roughing in exactly what it's going to be. Here, I'll show you a quick example on my actual portfolio website of an app I did. This is just a WordPress simple portfolio site. Go into my Android and iOS thing here. And this mobile app that I made once upon a time, I made a video to show it on my website. There's just a 30-second video. This is the app in all these different screen sizes. But when I go through and hit play, I'm going to pause it a couple times, but I basically show the design process. So I start off, this is my content map. This was a very, very small app. But as it scrolls down, be able to see this was for the Wonderland Market. And I gave it a big header. This is the Wonderland Market application content map. And I actually used Glyphy for this, which automatically let me build these little boxes with icons in them without me having to draw all of it. And there's a home screen, and then here's the different screens that are on the app, and here's all the different content that goes on those screens. Then this is my wireframes. Now again, you guys won't have to use an actual phone. You can just use boxes, basically. In this case, I used just different levels of grayscale to show what things were going to be on each thing. So you can see I have a title for each screen. That is something you should do, is you should title your wireframes to tell us what screen you're actually showing. You can see on this home screen, there's a little logo and a menu, and goes through, and there's an interactive map screen, a list of merchants screen, a merchant details screen, and this shows me the merchant name. Here's some dummy text. Here's where this is going to go. And this actually goes a step further, where I'm using the darkness of the grayscale to denote what's most important on the screen for the user, for their eye to be drawn to. So this was something that was decided from the client. They said, okay, well, we definitely want the logo and the header for our branding to stick out. And we definitely want this map button to stick out more than anything else. So that's kind of an extra level you could take your wireframes to use kind of what's called a visual hierarchy, to use different grayscales and different levels to denote kind of what's more important and should be popping out. And that can really help you when it comes to building your real design and filling some things out. So just basic, again, these are just rounded boxes with either text in them saying what's going to be there, or text around them that's showing what actual text is going to be. Now, as I play through, this is going to fade into the final design, but ideally, you should be able to just turn your wireframes into your final design, and just like that. So I just have a little fade here showing this, but each of these screens ended up kind of pretty much being the layout, but here's what it looks like where it goes from wireframe to actually putting fonts and images and colors and all of that stuff, how things are going to look.